Hello, hello. We are back and we're here, Richard and I, and we wanted to speak about...
I'm back.
So we actually wanted to speak about capitalism and how to make it more conscious and social. So basically, like, we definitely need a change in the way our societies are operating. And as we said in the previous episode, it's not that profits are bad. Actually, profits are necessary for creating, let's say, more wealth. It's just that it needs to be best distributed, no? So, Richard, what's your take on this? Like, what do you think when I say a social and conscious capitalism?
That's a really good question. Thank you. Really tough question too. I could ask you the same. I mean, what do you think about it? But I'm gonna answer.
No, I prefer to throw that ball to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna give my most honest answer on this. I'm a social democrat. I mean, I am a progressive person. I think capitalism needs to be reformed. I mean, capitalism as by itself, I don't deny that it's been the only economic system that has actually helped people in a materialistic way, in a materialistic manner, improve their lives, our lives, because we have all been affected by our economic model. But I also think, and this is my opinion, that we have been raised and prepared to be only consumers, and it is different to be consumers, and then another thing is to be conscious consumers. And I think our neoliberal capitalistic model,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Is a model that does not want consumers to be conscious. It just needs consumers to be consumers,
yeah.
And accumulate. And that's one of the huge problems in our society, in our economy. This also puts a problem in terms of social inclusion.
Yeah.
So you need people that will do the hard labor, that will do the legwork, and that will be paid less of what they deserve.
Yeah.
And those people will spend most of their money on, as I was saying before, on surviving and consuming what they can, because this is the economy we have. I mean, and some of us will try to invest our money in the most wisely way possible when you have the chances. I mean, if you have that sort of income. But bottom line, the matter is that there is still a huge difference between those that make very little and those that make huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
And the lie is to think that it is the fault of those people that are poor. It is their fault. They are responsible also for environmental degradation. They are not conscious enough. They are not, because that is not true. They are not being allowed to be conscious enough. I think for us to have a social and an environmentally conscious capitalism, of course, one of the most important things, it is education. It's training. It's providing people with the right tools and knowledge to face the challenges that this crisis is creating. And it is a crisis created by humans. So we need to be aware, and we need to provide people those tools to be aware, to be conscious, and understand that they have a role to play, especially poor people. My belief is that if you're poor, if you're in survival mode, you don't care about what is happening. You don't care about climate change. You see those climate change will be to you something that is only for rich people to talk about.
Yeah.
And that is wrong. That is wrong, because it is, especially poor people are the most defenseless people when it comes to the problems that climate change is creating.
Yeah. No, I hear you and I understand your point. And definitely all of what you're saying, it's important. However, what I do know is that the biggest damage comes from the richest people. In fact, developed countries, they have a bigger, like 13 times bigger footprint rather than a non-developed country. Why? Because you have one person flying in a private jet, and you have one person having 5 houses, and the 5 houses, they're huge, and it's not that it's closed and you leave it there. No, it's closed, but if it's winter, the heatings are going on and there's no one in the house, or there's one person. And then if it's cold, then the aircon, it's still running, because you never know when you want to go to your house, so you want the house to be cool when you get there. So the biggest impact, it's coming from the wealthiest countries, and for sure from the wealthiest people. So I think the matter of education has to come for everyone, and not just, of course, poor people, they have other problems. And as you're saying, they have to focus on surviving, which is absolutely unfair. But I think the highest education in terms of sustainability needs to go for the wealthiest countries. And they need to know that it's a holistic thing, and it's not just a matter of, but I recycle at home, because recycling at home, it's a pacifier. It's for you to think that you're doing your thing, but then you don't think on how you are transporting yourself to, like, for going to work, or for going to a different city, or how you're dressing up yourself, which materials you're using, and much more, you know. Also, depends on the country, because, for example, in Holland, that they are very socialist at the core. To them, the extreme wealth, it's almost a shame, in the sense that even though you're very wealthy, you're never going to show it off. So you still ride your bike every day. And therefore, it's great, because it's not that because I'm filthy rich, I need to drive my car for going to the supermarket, which is 1 block away, when I can get my bicycle and go to the supermarket. Whereas in the United States, for example, where capitalism, it's sauvage, it's extreme, then it's much better to drive your car rather than to ride a bicycle.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in principle. I mean, I think we need to also make a difference. I mean, there are the developing countries, which are poor, and they have very poor also environmental policies.
Yeah.
Then there is a developed country where, there are rich people, but there's also there's also the class system.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that we are advanced economies, we have modern environmental policies, some of which are being applied in our economies, in our societies. Some of the others are less easy to apply right away, and it takes a lot of transition, a time for the transition and for the application of implementation of these policies. So it takes longer than expected. But what I'm trying to say is that within the class system that we have, people that are in the lower part of this class system, they will be also less focused on how they can contribute.
Yeah, no. That 100%, that I agree.
And,
of course, it's us in Venezuela.
And yeah, I mean, the rich people probably in this part of the world will have a bigger effect on the environment, because they probably will care less. I mean, they have the money. But I mean, I guess there's also some social responsibility, and the wealthiest part of our developed countries, they're sometimes they're split as well. I mean, there's people that want to do a lot and they want to contribute. There's other people that they don't care and they just want to make money, which is understandable. But we will get to a point that, I mean, money will be pretty much insignificant if we don't face and try to mitigate
exactly.
the worst effects of climate change. But what I'm saying is that also in the developed countries, the poor people in the developed countries, they need to feel that they are also part of the solution. Which my fear is that most of the time, people that are in survival mode, as we were saying, and people that are worried just to how do I get to the end of the month without struggling so much, they will not care about, I mean, I need to recycle this plastic bottle in this bin.
Or I can't throw the plastic away in the grass.
Yeah, I mean, I can throw everything together.
When I used to live in Tanzania, but Venezuela is the same. Something that impressed me a lot. The thing is that in Venezuela, I don't live in a rural area, whereas in Tanzania, I was living in a rural area, so I was in touch with all of that. Like, people would drink, for example, from a plastic bottle, and they would throw it away. And then I was like, why don't you put it in a bin? And then, since there is not a good and well organized trash collection from the country, they just burn the waste they make. So that means they burn plastics and sweaters and all together.
Which is even worse.
Yeah, and we did. We did at the orphanage I was volunteering at. We did a vegetable garden that it was just 2 by 2 by 2, and all the plastic pens we got, plastic bottles, sweaters, batteries. We got more than 70 batteries out of that, and I was only thinking, these kids are going to have a vegetable garden out of this soil. So I was actually hoping for them to let the first crop die and let it pass a bit and clean the soil. But of course you can't, because you are in survival mode on. So you just need to eat what you have.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things that I was trying to say. I mean, like, yeah, developing countries, they have their own environmental problems because their policies are weak. And waste management is one of the best examples. I mean, like, Caracas is a great example, because there's always been a lot of space to just simply, I mean, throw tons of shit all around the city without anybody caring. But that actually is an issue, because it will cause soil poisoning. It will pollute also water, underground water.
The air quality becomes much worse.
The quality of the air will produce a lot of methane, because all these landfills, they're a huge source of methane.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's not even, the worst thing is that it's not even on a landfill. It's in the middle of the city. In the case of Caracas,
I mean, Caracas is an open landfill.
It's exactly. And the problem with the landfills and the methane they're creating is that methane is, I don't know if it's the worst, but it's from the greenhouse gases. It actually hits the earth 84 times more than CO2. Yeah. So we're always speaking about CO2.
It also lasts less than CO2 in the atmosphere.
Yes, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure of what I'm going to say, but I think that the time it lasts less, it's still not worth for the amount of heating it produces.
Yeah, it's never worth.
So it doesn't pay off, let's say.
It's never worth. Yeah, I mean, it never pays off. It never pays off.
Exactly.
You should not. It shouldn't go to the atmosphere. That's
exactly.
the whole point.
And
But,
the thing is that
it lives less in the atmosphere, but yeah, it heats up the atmosphere much more and much quicker as well.
Yeah. And I wanted to actually link something to what we've been saying regarding this, like differences between developing countries and developed countries and the landfill and all of that, you know. Yeah, the developing countries, they actually have a lower impact, but the bigger impact they have, it's coming from us, from the developed countries. And from us, I mean, because I live in Italy, not because I live in Venezuela. But yeah, I know you know. Thank you.
Probably the public doesn't know, but I know. Yeah.
So, because, for example, everything that's coming to the landfills is not the waste accumulation from that country. It's the waste accumulation from other countries. Or, for example, in terms of also fashion, the fashion industry, another big environmental problem is the water consumption and pollution. And we produce in Bangladesh. Oh, great. But then Bangladeshi factories, they just waste, actually 90% of the wastewater from developing countries, it's not treated to go back to the oceans or to the lakes in a clean way. So we're just discarding waste in clean places or places that should be clean. And with that being said, it's not that Bangladeshi factories are producing for Bangladesh. They're producing for us. So the greater impact they're having, it's actually coming from the richer countries, which is even worse because we're throwing all the waste to them and we're causing all the harm to them, and they're not even taking any advantage of it because they're being very badly paid. They're forced to live in a terrible environment, like polluted,
horrible.
Yeah, exactly. And then with their terrible salary, they can't even afford one of the T-shirts that they're making. So none of this, it's good for them, basically. And we don't even realize about that.
Yeah, which is even a worse survival mode.
Exactly. So the initial question of what's the alternative to this capitalism, neoliberalist capitalism, it would be to consume. I'm not saying not to consume, because if we don't consume, we don't grow. And as I said at the beginning, profits are good and are our friend if they're well done, if it's in a conscious way. So it would be actually to consume better and to educate people on what they're consuming.
Yeah. I mean, what we were saying. I mean, and I agree on the premises of what you're saying. I mean, is capitalism or neoliberal capitalism the only way? To me, the answer is no.
Yeah,
and
it's not a way.
It's not the only way. It's not the only
way.
No,
but I wouldn't even say only. It's not the way, because we have all the problems that we have been creating.
It still is. It's still the way we're doing things.
No, exactly. No, but when I say it's not a possible way to make it better.
Yeah,
it's not a solution. It's not a solution. It's the way we're doing things. It's the way we're doing things, but it's exactly what we have to change.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And there's a contradiction. I mean, I think from what I've learned so far, and what it seems to me obvious, is that you cannot keep consuming the way as a society, we cannot keep consuming as we are doing, because our number one priority should be preserve nature, preserve our resources, use what we already have, preserve people in the human condition, especially. I mean, these are our, as you were saying it was well said. I mean, these are all interconnected matters, and we cannot keep approaching this in compartments. You know, I mean, this is one issue, this is another issue, this is another issue, and
it can't work at men's brain. It has to work at women's brain. Everything together.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna leave out the connections and the interconnection between these issues, because they are pretty complex and they're pretty much real. Exactly. And that's something that we need to take into account when we are trying to address these issues, either in the developed country or the developing country. Developing country, they have very different problems, especially in terms of their political systems. Sometimes they don't even care about these issues, and they will not care about these issues because they will prioritize their whatever regime you are in, and their goals, or whatever weak democracy in the developing countries that is also trying to survive and not fall into a regime. So these political issues, they have an impact. They have an impact, especially because they exacerbate the social and economic differences within those people. And same, you could say, in the developed country, but still, I mean, you have a system that, at least a system of laws and regulations that works. I mean, this system provides us with a quality of living, a quality of life that is it is not still possible in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
And because and that's probably also one of the problems. I mean, our comforts come always first.
Like we're not being condescending and thinking on the others. We're never putting ourselves in the other person's shoes.
That's right, and we're not giving up certain comfortabilities. I mean, like, I want to drive my car every day. Probably you shouldn't, because it makes an impact. And I understand that there's people that
I want to buy something new every time I go out.
I want to buy something.
You don't need
I want to eat meat every day. We are in a different society, a society that understands and is more conscious that those choices as a consumer could make a huge difference. And it's making an impact. It's making an impact because these are very high polluting decisions.
Yeah.
If we are educated as consumers, as conscious consumers, and I think that's a key for us, as I said, I mean, we need to be conscious consumers. And a conscious consumer will always be aware of the trade-off of their choices.
Yeah, so they will be educated. So that, let's say that as a conclusion, also because you said something that I want to use for the next episode, but as a conclusion, what we need is, capitalism, because we do need to consume, but in a conscious and social way. And for that, we need to change the way we are consuming, and most importantly, educate ourselves to know how to best consume.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, consumption is key to tackle these issues. It's key to reform capitalism, because capitalism is an economic system that is strongly influenced by consumption. So if you actually educate your consumers, you will, the results that as a society we're aiming at to tackle and mitigate the worst effects of climate change, it is in our reach if we are conscious enough. And education is part of that. Also, social inclusion is part of that, and also participation, being active. Being an activist. We all need to be an activist, and I am not an activist. I mean, I confess, I say all these big words. I try to read all the books. I try to read the newspapers. But when it comes to, okay, now you have to go on the streets and be another Greta Thunberg. I am not. I don't agree in the sense that you are an activist,
because you do try to speak to people. We don't all need to be Greta. I mean, we can't be all in the squares shouting. But I do think that being an activist, it's also, because if not, that seems that, oh, we all need to be, I'm going to say the wrong word for Greta, but we all need to be influencers. No, we don't all need to be influencers. We can all be activists in a way that it's comfortable to us. And if you're not comfortable speaking to a mass of people, then you're an activist by buying the right things. If you're already consuming in a healthy way, you're being an activist because you are matching what you're saying or what we're doing. You know, we're having a conversation and sharing our thoughts to people, because people will listen to this, even though we don't have the same audience in length as Greta, but we're still doing something. And
we're doing something. I don't think it's enough, because what we're doing,
it will never be enough. Nothing that we do will never be enough.
Again, I mean, like my point is that we sometimes can be complacent to the situation because we think that we're doing something.
As recycling, as I was saying in the past episode, like you can't take it as a pacifier. The thing is that you need to know that sustainability, like reaching sustainability, is an ever increasing road, and you always have to focus on like driving that road. It's not like, oh, I recycled the carton of the day, so I did my job. No, you can turn off the lights.
It's an everyday thing.
Exactly. You can help a neighbor. You can go and buy something good. Also buy something healthy for eating, or you can read something interesting. Like, you need to constantly be working on it. And not stay.
You need to always also, apart from the actions,
it has to be part of your daily life.
Your daily life. Yeah, that's right. I agree completely. Yeah, that's a key matter. And just, I mean, then we can close it and wrap up. I mean, that's something that I guess, connecting with the first episode, also when we talk about the masters that we are doing, that I think these masters and these business schools programs are pretty much disconnected with. They don't value as much the social dimension and the consumer dimension of the problem. And I think that's because everything is focused on seeing sustainability as a business opportunity. But we need to escalate that. I mean, of course, you need the business.
It is part of it. It is part of it, and it's as I was saying in the previous one. Like, if you do good, you can. Like, if you do good as in terms of action, you can receive much more. You know, goodness only brings goodness towards you. So in this case, like, if I do good, I can maybe make more profit. So it will be part of it, but that's just a consequence. No, it's I want to be smarter. That's not the aim. You become smarter by studying and reading and like working on yourself more. So the path is to study, to read, to work on yourself, and as a consequence, you will be smarter. But that doesn't mean that the objective is to be smarter.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is a mindset shift, but we should aim not only at a mindset shift. We need to aim at a status quo shift. Yeah. So the order of things, that's something that we need to change. We need to capsize.
To reorganize.
To capsize.
We need to shift our mindset completely.
Completely reorganized. And the only way to do that, to me, is by understanding that as a consumer and as a conscious consumer, you will be an activist as well, but you also need to engage politically, and you also need to engage every day in understanding the issues, in getting informed, tune in what is the current state of affairs. And I think most of the time we are, by design, as humans and as members of this society, and by all the circumstances around our lives every day, because we're always constantly being stimulated, and we are constantly being distracted. Our attention is fragmented in millions of things. We don't keep focused on anything anymore for more than at least, I don't know.
Yeah, we became like babies, that they have a very short span of attention.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this video, it's great. I mean, this conversation, I love it. But the audience that is going to listen to this, they are going to listen for the first minute, and then they will start losing their attention on what we're saying. And I understand that, because, I mean, I myself, I lose attention of what I'm saying while I'm saying it, because I don't pay enough attention to myself. And I always think that I'm saying very much nonsense.
That's how we go from one place to the other. And
that's why I don't get any dates, and my life with women are terrible, because I never get their attention. But I wish for the sake of humanity that we as a society will pay attention to these matters every day and constantly. I am not exempt from mistake. I do have problems in keeping it up, but every time I fail, the next day, the next hour, I'll try to make it up.
Yeah.
And get back on that, resume that job. So that's my point. Apart from the dating life part, I mean, that's unrelated. But I mean,
do you want to put your Tinder profile in here?
Well, I have one. I mean, if people are interested, I mean, like, you can look me up. But, I don't think it's gonna. It hasn't worked yet, but I mean, I'll get by.
Thank you, Richard. We can do another episode on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
But mostly, thank you to everyone who listened to us. I want to invite you to see the next episode, where we will continue our conversation. And see you there.
Thank you, everybody. See you later.